A few days ago, we made a video talking about the 3 biggest busts going into the NBA draft. And in that video, I said if it gets 1,200 likes, I'll do another video talking about the 3 biggest sleepers going into the draft. It's only been 3 to 4 days since I posted that video and you guys crushed it and we got it to already 1,600 likes. Thank you for the support, I'm glad you enjoyed the video, and hey, you met the requirement, so we're going to talk about the sleepers in this video. I always like talking about the sleepers and the players who don't get enough hype because they deserve it. And in today's video, we're not going to talk about just 3 sleepers, but we're going to talk about 4 of the biggest sleepers heading into the NBA draft. What's good, y'all? I hope you're having a blessed day. Just wanted to drop by and say we're on the road to 2 million subscribers, so if you're new to the channel or not subscribed, what are you doing? Join the family, hit that subscribe button and leave a like for more. Now without further ado, let's get into this video. First things first, before we even get into this video, yes, I'm doing 4 sleepers and not 3. I'm doing 4 and not 3 because the 4 players we're going to talk about in this video are equally slept on. I didn't want to leave one hanging, so I was like, hey, why not? Let's just throw another one in and we'll make a longer video, and I'm sure you guys will not mind. Me personally, I like longer videos and I'm sure most of you do too. So let's get into sleeper pick number 1. This player may even be the biggest sleeper in general going into the draft, but we have no other than Trendon Watford. I've actually been keeping up with Trendon himself ever since his high school basketball days because he's from the same state as me. He dominated all throughout his high school career, and going into college he decided to go to LSU. LSU is probably one of the teams that I hate the most, but Trendon Watford is a straight up dog and he had a fantastic career for them. In the most recent mock draft, they have him going at number 39, which is in the 2nd round, and I think that's absurd. Watford is a 6'9", 240 pound small forward that can do a little bit of everything. He carried LSU in the second half of the season, and they do have Cameron Thomas, who was their best player probably, but Trendon Watford was not too far behind. In the SEC tournament and in the game against Alabama, he went off and he dominated. He's going to have a good NBA career, and whoever lands this kid in the NBA draft is going to get a special player. He can guard any position on the court, and he's quick enough to even guard some point guards off of screens. I do think he is a little too tall and a little too slow to play the point guard or shooting guard position in the NBA, but he's going to be a great small forward or even a power forward. What made him so good in college is that he was a mismatch. He was too tall for the small forwards and he was too quick for the power forwards. So that's why he had a lot of games where he would take over and get really hot. You already know we're going to get into his stats because everyone loves looking at the stats. Come on now. As much as we do talk about the stats on this channel, I'm not a big numbers guy. I like looking at the eye test. And let me tell you something, Trendon Watford passes the eye test. My favorite part about his game is that when he has a smaller defender on him, he doesn't settle for a 3. He always backs him down in the paint and takes a smart shot, or he passes out of the double team. And when you get to the NBA, that's what he's going to need to do. If I had to compare him to an NBA player, I really see a lot of Michael Porter Jr. in this kid. Hold on, pump the brakes. Am I saying he is Michael Porter Jr. and he's as good as him? No, absolutely not. They have a similar body frame, and Watford is a little bit slower and he doesn't shoot as good. With him not shooting as good though, I think he makes up for that in his post play. He only played 2 seasons at LSU, and in his first season he averaged 13.6 points per game. He was a freshman though, and I'd say he had a good freshman season, but in his sophomore year, which was the recent year, he went off. He averaged 16.3 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. But the difference in his second year and his first year was his shooting ability. He shot 48% from the field and bumped his 3-point percentage up to 31.6. As a freshman, his 3-point percentage was only 27. That was big and key for him because a lot of scouts weren't so high on him because he wasn't known as a shooter. And as we all know, in the NBA, you got to be able to shoot the ball. He's slowly starting to rise up draft boards because he proved that he can shoot good enough to make the defender step out on him. Like I said, I'm not an LSU fan by any means, and I quite frankly almost hate them, but this dude was a monster for him and I fell in love with his game. What the numbers and stats aren't going to show you and tell you is how smart he is. He knows the game of basketball. He has a very high IQ. Another thing the stats aren't going to show you is that he wasn't even the best player on his team. His teammate, known as Cameron Thomas, like we mentioned previously, averaged over 23 points per game. I'm saying that because that just shows that he can play with other superstars on his team, and that's going to be good for the NBA. Do I think he's going to be an all-star caliber player? Maybe one day, and I don't think he's going to be good enough to lead a franchise, but he's going to be a good Robin to a Batman. I think it's a shame and it's really disrespectful they got him going in the 2nd round. He passes the eye test, he's a great and humble kid, and his numbers are a lot better than some people ahead of him. Keep your eyes open for Mr. Trendon Watford because he's going to turn some heads. Sleeper number 2 going into the draft, we have a guy that absolutely nobody's giving any credit or recognition to, and his name is no other than Greg Brown. Brown was a star in high school and people were really high on him going into college. He decided to attend Texas and that's where he played in this recent year. I was seeing where Texas fans and casual fans in general were saying that he had a disappointing season, but I disagree. I'll give you the numbers first and then we'll do a rundown. In 26 games played, he averaged 9.3 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, 0.4 assists, and shot 42% from the field. When you see those numbers at first glance, you think they're not that good, but just listen to what I'm about to say. He was a huge presence on the defensive side of the ball, and that's not going to show up in stats. He did average 1 block per game, but his presence on the defensive side was much more than just 1 block. His overall field goal percentage, it wasn't good, I'll be honest, 42%, but his 3-point percentage was 33%. And that is huge because he's going to be a big man in the NBA, so he's got to be able to step out and hit the tray ball. Similar to our previous player we just talked about, he's also listed at 6'9", but he's only 200 pounds. Brown is much more explosive than Trendon Watford, and he's going to be a problem for a lot of teams. In one of the most recent mock drafts, they have him going at number 35. That's a little low considering the fact that he has a lot of potential and he didn't even reach it in college. This also isn't a draft class that is loaded with big men, so I don't see why he's falling so much. He didn't get talked about a lot this year because he had a lot of other teammates that were outperforming him. Just because they was playing better than him, it doesn't mean he didn't have a good year. If you even watched any of their games, you would know that Texas had a lot of great players. Another key reason he's a big sleeper is because his other teammate known as Kai Jones is projected to be a lottery pick. When you have teammates that are going into the draft, the one that's going to get higher is going to get all the talk. Whereas for Greg Brown, he's kind of getting lost in all the mix because his other teammate was a way better player in this recent season. And yes, that's right, I said his teammate known as Kai Jones was a better player because he straight up was. But however, with that being said, Mr. Jones was also a sophomore. Greg Brown was just a freshman. One thing we need to talk about with Greg is the fact that he didn't have that good of a season, let's just be honest. He didn't put up impressive numbers, but he still looked okay out there. And that right there is scary because he's nowhere near his potential and he still had a good year. When players are great and they don't have that good of a year, but their numbers are still good, that's scary because they can still improve a lot more. If I'm being honest too, when I was watching some of his games, I felt like he wasn't comfortable out there and he didn't fit well in the system. Maybe that's just me, I don't know, but whichever team gets him in the second round, if he does fall that far, they're getting a steal. With all that being said, let's get into sleeper number 3. Sleeper number 3 going into the NBA draft is Josh Christopher. If you watched him in high school, he's also known as Jacob. Josh was a 5-star recruit in high school and one of the best players we ever saw at the high school level, and going into college, he had a lot of expectations. He was going to a team that wasn't that good, so he was expected to be the star player and put up crazy numbers. He's sort of fallen and lost a little bit of his height because he didn't play all throughout the season. He only appeared in 15 games. And of course, like always, whether you get hurt or you're just not playing, you're gonna go down in the draft or anything. That's normal. However, in those 15 games, he averaged 14.3 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and shot over 43% from the field. His 3-point percentage was solid enough, it was right at 30.5. I wouldn't pay too much attention to his 3-point percentage because he is a much better shooter than that stat line. One stat that stuck out to me and when I was watching him throughout this season is that he was an underrated defender. He averaged over 1.5 steals per game. Out of every player we're talking about in this video, I think he's the best defender, and he may be one of the best defenders in the entire draft. He's listed at 6'5", 215 pounds, so he's not too big, not too small, and he's quick enough to guard any position. If he did get switched on a center, of course the center is going to have the advantage, but I think he's big enough to stick with him at least for a play or two. I really don't understand why they don't have him going in the first round because he had a great season in college and he was one of the best players in high school. I get it and I understand that he didn't play half of the season, but neither did Sharife Cooper, and they got him going in the lottery. There's a lot of other players that are ahead of him like Brandon Boston. My prayers go out to him, he's going through a lot, but from a basketball standpoint, Josh Christopher had a way better season than BJ Boston. I would understand it a little more if people were worried about him on the defensive side, but like I said, he was one of the best defenders on his team. He's not a great shooter just yet, but he's a good shooter. And he's not even known for shooting really. He's good at attacking the goal and getting others involved. There's not too much more I need to even say about him. I think everyone can agree with me, he's got to be one of the biggest sleepers. If he falls falls in the second round, that's utterly ridiculous. And the way all the mock drafts have it, they got him falling there. When I'm making this video, they got him going at number 36 overall. So yeah, that's a little disrespectful. With all that being said, let's get into our last and fourth sleeper going into the draft of this video. Our fourth and final sleeper heading into the NBA draft, he's a former champion, not a former champion, he is a current champion. We have no other than Jared Butler. I absolutely fell in love with Butler's game this entire season. He's a remarkable teammate, he can handle the ball, can shoot the ball, and what I love most, he is Mr. Consistency. Did I just say Mr. Consistency? It's Mr. Consistent. Matt, what are you talking about? Or maybe I did say right. Anyways, you get what I'm trying to say. Let's continue on. He's not one of those players who's going to be a good offensive player and slouch on defense. He has a good overall game. Now, here's the thing. He doesn't have superstar potential, and I get it, but he's probably the safest pick throughout the entire draft. And what I like to call, I think he's the best bang for your buck. They currently have him going at number 20 overall, but I still think he's being slept on. In the year we just had, he averaged 16.7 points per game, over 3 rebounds, roughly 5 assists, and shot 47% from the field. And from the 3-point line, it was nothing short of fantastic. He shot 41.6%. And oh yeah, we can't forget to mention that he averaged 2 steals per game. That's an underrated stat in my opinion, like we talked about with Josh Christopher, because that shows that you want to play on the defensive side. I'm going to emphasize consistent with him because that's what he is. Every single night he went out there, you knew you could expect 12 to 20 points. It wasn't one of those situations where he was only going to score 4 one night, then 30 the next. And as a coach, you gotta love knowing what a player is going to do every single game. He did increase his draft stock throughout this entire year, especially in March Madness. There's only good things to talk about with Jared Butler, and the reason why, I know it's corny, but he only does good things. There's not one single knock in his game. He played 3 years at Baylor, and every single year he got better and better. For the 2018 through 19 season, he averaged 10 points per game. In the following season, he averaged 16, and in the season we just had, he averaged 16.7. So it went up every year. The same thing for his assists. In his first year, he averaged 2.7. In his second year, he averaged 3.1. In his third year, he averaged 4.8. And then last but not least, let's look at his field goal percentages. 2018 through 19, shot 39. 2019 through 20, shot 42. And in the recent year, shot 47. And then from the 3-point line, shot 35, 38, then almost 42. As an NBA executive and scout, that's what you love to see, a player getting better and better and better. You don't want a guy that plateaus in his second or third year because that means he reached his potential. With Jared Butler, I don't even think he's reached it. It really all depends on the team too. If you're okay and comfortable, I wouldn't really go for Butler because if you need a big time player, I don't think this is your guy right away. But if you're not sure on who you want and you want a safe pick, this has got to be the first guy taken in the draft. I'm not saying the first overall pick, but the first safe pick. You get what I'm trying to say. And if you don't get what I'm trying to say, too bad, I'm not explaining it. If I had to make an NBA comparison, and I think this is perfect, let me know in the comment section. I think Jared Butler's NBA comparison is Chris Paul. We all know Chris Paul is not going to be the guy that's going to give you 30 points every single night. But he's also not going to give you 5. He's very consistent. And I see a lot of that in Jared Butler. I think out of every player in this video, he probably is going to have the longest and solidest or most solid NBA career. He's not going to be a guy that wows you. He's not going to do crazy dunks, but he's going to do his job every single night. I could go on and on about Jared Butler because I love this kid. But for all those reasons, this is why I think he's arguably one of the biggest sleepers in the draft. All 4 of these guys we talked about in this video, I think they have one thing in common. They are being slept on way too much, and they're also really good basketball players. Even though they are being slept on, I'm pretty sure all of them will get drafted, but I think they should get drafted a little higher. I'm wishing all these guys the best of luck, and I hope they have a ton of success in their basketball career. I'm very curious though, let me know what you think about these players, if I'm wrong or right, and let me know some of your sleepers in the comment section down below. But with all that being said, that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. If you're new to the channel, what are you doing? We're on the road to 12 million, baby. And as always, let's be great. I'm out, y'all. Peace.